Keanu Reeves stepped into a bar where he was a stranger, unrecognized and disrespected. The crowd jeered at his attire, splashed beer on him, and branded him a coward. He remained composed until they pushed too far. Just as the tension was about to ignite, Chuck Norris entered, and the bar realized they had targeted the wrong person. Before we dive in, have you ever been misjudged for being reserved? Drop a yes in the comments if you understand that stillness isn't weakness. Outside, the wind roared like a harbinger, unnoticed within the grimy walls of the rusted chain. Neon glows cast a faint warmth, mingling with the stench of sweat-drenched leather and scorched whiskey. A jukebox growled a blues tune, nearly lost under raucous laughter, the clack of pool balls, and the sporadic thud of boots on grimy floors. Then the door groaned open. Head swiveled briefly, dismissing the newcomer as insignificant. He bore no biker patches or flashy jewelry, no chains or bold buckles, just a plain black tee, a worn leather jacket, faded jeans, and boots that had seen more miles than the motorcycles parked outside. A cap hid his eyes, his demeanor unervingly serene for such a rough joint. He ambled to the bar, requested a bourbon neat, and eyed a vacant table near the window. He claimed it silently, offering no threat, not even glancing at the rowdy bikers dominating the room's center. Yet his quietness spoke volumes. 3 tables over, Viper, a hulking figure with a neck like a steel rod and flame tattoos snaking up his arms, squinted and wrapped his beer bottle to draw eyes. "Hey!" he barked, the words slicing through the air, aimed at the corner. The man didn't stir. Viper leaned back, voice booming. "Look at this guy waltzing in, taking our spot like he's king. Doesn't even ditch the hat." Snickers erupted. One biker scoffed. "Looks like a washed-up custodian," another chimed, "or some roadie lost off a tour bus." But the man merely sipped his drink, gaze fixed on the storm outside, as if it held more meaning than the taunts inside. Viper rose, his boots pounding with cocky rhythm, and sauntered over, leaning on the table. "You hear me, old-timer?" The stranger finally looked up, voice steady and cool. "I heard. I just didn't think it was worth responding to." The calm words stung sharper than any slur. The crew behind Viper hesitated, then laughed harder. "Oh, he's a comedian," Viper sneered, smirk tightening. "Thinks he's above us." "No," the man replied, lifting his glass. "Just less noisy." Viper stiffened, his grin turning icy. Behind the counter, the owner glanced nervously between them, sensing an imminent clash. The man in the corner, still unknown, took another sip, waiting, not for help or sympathy, just for the next misstep. The laughter sharpened, edged with menace. Viper slammed his beer down, foam spilling. "Got a sharp tongue, huh? Let's see if that cool act lasts when you're soaked." His gang roared approval. Tank, a massive bearded brute in a ripped vest, snatched a pint and accidentally tripped near Keanu's table, drenching him in beer. "Whoops," Tank mocked. "Sorry, Grandpa. Hope your fancy drink didn't mind the company." He anticipated a reaction, but Keanu stayed still, setting his glass down, wiping his arm with a napkin, and slowly drying the table's edge, unrushed, breath even. "Man, what's wrong with this dude?" Tank grumbled, retreating. Viper loomed forward again, the bar's chatter fading instinctively. Regulars knew this pattern. Taunt, tension, trouble. Yet something felt different. Keanu sat unmoved, one hand on the wet table, the other near his untouched jacket on the chair, eyes tracking Viper's every move. "Think you're too good for this?" Viper growled, towering over him. Keanu met his gaze, tone level. "No, I just think this place overestimates its own noise." A hush crashed over the room. Viper's smile hid strain. Without warning, he kicked Keanu's chair, rocking it, bourbon sloshing. Keanu steadied himself with a fluid grip on the table, face unchanged. Viper leaned closer, voice a hiss. "Know what happens to quiet types like you? They vanish." Keanu blinked once. "That a threat?" "No," Viper murmured. "It's custom." The bartender tensed, familiar with brawls but not with a man so unshaken facing a giant. Keanu reached for his jacket, movements slow, non-threatening, laying it on his lap. "I won't stop you," he said softly, "but I'd advise against what you're thinking." For the first time, Viper wavered, unaccustomed to doubt. His bulk usually intimidated instantly, but this man's unflinching calm unnerved him. The bar watched, no longer jeering, just observing. Viper, feeling his grip slip, raised his voice. "Looking for trouble, huh?" he snapped, nudging Keanu's chair harder with his boot. Still no reaction. Viper sneered. "All right." He snatched the bourbon glass, smashing it across the room, then yanked Keanu's jacket to the floor, stomping on it. "Let's see that calm now, tough guy." Keanu looked up, not angry, just mildly let down. "Finished." Viper laughed harshly. "Finished? I'm just warming up." He cocked a fist, showy and obvious. The room froze. Keanu rose, slow and graceful, taller than expected. Posture easy yet firm, hands at his sides. No hostility, just presence. Viper faltered, doubt flickering. Keanu didn't square up. He simply spoke. "This isn't really about me, is it?" Viper blinked. "What? You're not proving anything to me," Keanu said evenly. "You're proving it to them. If one quiet guy can brush you off, what happens when everyone else catches on?" The silence was deafening. Viper's fist lowered briefly. Then he shoved Keanu's chest, a sloppy, frustrated push. Keanu stepped back, absorbed it, and stood tall again. He picked up his jacket, dusted it off, and draped it over his arm. "I came for a drink," he said, voice unwavering. "You came to be feared. Seems neither of us got what we wanted." Viper's fists tightened, but something in his gaze broke. He muttered under his breath, retreating to his table. Keanu sat back down as if nothing occurred, and for the first time, the rusted chain felt uncertain of its own hierarchy. A shift had happened, palpable to all. Outside, the wind battered the windows like a warning. Inside, silence reigned. Viper sulked at his table, jaw grinding in shame. His crew stayed mute, sipping beers. They'd seen him crush men for less, but tonight, this man's stillness rattled even Viper. The bartender polished an already clean glass, eyes darting to Keanu, now seated with a fresh bourbon, jacket on his lap, undisturbed. Then the door slammed open, cold air rushing in. Patrons glanced over, expecting a stray wanderer, but instead a figure entered, older, broad-shouldered, with a deliberate stride and undeniable gravitas. Clad in a faded denim shirt, sleeves rolled. His boots thudded on the floor. No name was needed. His aura said it all, Chuck Norris. A shiver ran through the room. One man dropped his cue, another muttered, "No way." Viper's face contorted with disbelief and fear. Chuck ignored everyone, eyes locked on Keanu, who stood with a faint, calm smile. Chuck approached, no hesitation, placing a solid hand on Keanu's shoulder. "Been a while," he said simply. Keanu nodded. "Appreciate you showing up." Chuck turned to the room, his weathered face stern under the dim lights. The bar fell deathly quiet. His gaze swept over them, pausing on Viper. "You chose the wrong man to challenge," Chuck said, voice low but piercing. "Be thankful he's the patient one." Viper's jaw locked, but he stayed seated, fist still, knowing deep down that while Keanu might let it slide, Chuck Norris wouldn't. Chuck glanced at Keanu. "Ready." Keanu took his jacket, joining him. They crossed the room like specters, unchallenged. The door swinging open into the frigid night. This time the chill wasn't from the wind. It was the void they left behind. Are you still with us? If you're supporting our story, type yes in the comments. We value your presence on this ride. Before the door fully closed, Chuck turned back, boots firm on the creaky floor, voice sharp as a blade. "I don't usually step into others' conflicts," he said, scanning the crowd. "But disrespecting a man like Keanu Reeves isn't just about him." He gestured to Keanu. It's an insult to every person who values honor over arrogance, restraint over violence. You're fortunate it was him here first, not me. Murmurs rustled through the room. Viper, pride still stinging, couldn't stay quiet. What now? He growled. Gonna fight me for some guy who can't handle his own? Chuck tilted his head, almost amused. You think this is about fighting? No, this was a test. One you flunked before you even spoke. Viper surged forward, reckless and rash. It was a grave error. Chuck didn't budge. He moved in a single precise pivot, his boot striking Viper's chest with a dull crack. Viper flew back, crashing through his table, chairs and bottles scattering. He hit the ground hard, unmoving. No one helped. Chuck exhaled, turning to the room, voice steady. I've dealt with men like him forever. Loud, intimidating, but they crumble when faced with someone who doesn't shout back. Silence forces them to confront themselves. He looked at Keanu, still composed. You managed this with more poise than I could. Thought a small emphasis wouldn't hurt. Keanu gave a slight smile. Thanks. A wiry biker with a snake tattoo muttered. Wait, Reeves? As in Keanu Reeves. Gasps and curses followed. Chuck laughed. Didn't realize. He addressed the bar. You saw him stay unshaken through insults, mockery, and shoves, never losing his cool. That's true power. Not volume, not intimidation, but enduring storms without turning into one. He scanned the crowd. Forget that again, and I might drop by unannounced. Chuck nodded to Keanu, and they headed for the door. No one dared speak. They parted silently, watching the tempest and the tranquility leave together. As the door shut, a gust scattered napkins, the silence heavy with regret. The bartender lowered his glass, exhaling. Was that really Chuck Norris? Someone whispered. Another voice, softer, trembled. Forget Chuck, that was Keanu Reeves. The name struck like lightning. Patrons sat up, replaying the night. The quiet fortitude, absorbing every slight without retaliation. Someone fumbled with their phone, showing a photo of Keanu, same face, same jacket, same calm. Viper groaned on the floor, ribs aching, ignored. The bartender laughed shakily. I poured Keanu Reeves a bourbon and watched him get disrespected by fools. Should have tossed them out from the start. A silent biker muttered. He looked familiar. Didn't think a star would be in a dive like this. That's the thing, the bartender said, wiping the counter guiltily. He didn't come for fame, he came for peace. Another whispered. And he left with honor despite it all. Eyes turned to Viper, hunched and breathless. Fear replaced by pity. A waitress asked, Will he return? The bartender glanced at the empty table. Not sure, but if he does, that drink better be ready, and no one speaks until he does. The room stared at the vacant seat. One chair, one glass, one lesson louder than any fight. The man they belittled was a legend, a fighter, an icon, but above all, the calmest presence there. Now gone, they saw real strength and their own smallness beside it. Outside, the night grew colder, as if the wind itself bowed. Keanu and Chuck walked across the gravel lot, neon flickering behind like a plea for forgiveness. Chuck broke the quiet. You didn't need me there. Keanu glanced over, a faint smile. Maybe not, but they did. Chuck nodded, chuckling. Fair enough. They reached Chuck's weather truck under a dim streetlight, pausing to watch stars pierce the clouds. You didn't swing once. Chuck noted, almost admiringly. Keanu looked at the bar. No, I've thrown plenty in films. Sometimes people need to see what holding back looks like. Chuck agreed. I've always said the strongest in the room doesn't need to show it. Keanu smirked. Yet you sent that guy flying across the bar. Chuck raised a brow. Hey, I never claimed to be the strongest here. They shared a rare, warm laugh, fading into the dark. Sensing the moment's weight, Keanu spoke last. Kindness isn't frailty, silence isn't fear, but people often learn that too late. Chuck gripped his shoulder. They'll recall tonight. Keanu nodded. Let's hope they remember the right lesson. The two icons climbed into the truck, driving into the night, leaving behind shattered pride, challenged beliefs, and an empty glass that spoke louder than words. True strength isn't in control. It's in restraint, in knowing yourself without needing the world's cheers. Have you ever stayed quiet and later realized that was your greatest power? Type strength in the comments if you believe dignity outshines arrogance.